Get that sick old man out of my house. I don't want him near my children. My daughter-in-law screamed those words at my son the night after I told them I had heart failure. By morning, he told me to leave. I packed my suitcase in silence. But I didn't just take my clothes with me. I took $12 million they never knew I had. The diagnosis folder sat on my passenger seat, plain manila, like it held nothing more urgent than insurance paperwork. Moderate heart failure. 15 to 20 years with proper management, the doctor had said. Not a death sentence. But driving toward my son Michael's house in South Tampa, gratitude felt premature. For 3 years I had lived under his roof, playing the downsized retiree, the father who'd cashed out his business and simplified his life. Every month, I handed Michael $3,000 in cash, my contribution to household expenses. They took it like rent from a tenant, which, I suppose, was exactly what I'd let myself become. Inside, my grandchildren greeted me the way they always did, Olivia setting the table with her mother's precision, Lucas crashing toy cars into my legs. Michael came out in his weekend casual expensive polo, the build he inherited from me and none of the drive. Jennifer appeared from the kitchen in yoga clothes that cost more than some people's rent, glanced at my folder, and looked away. At dinner I told them, moderate heart failure, manageable, 15 to 20 years with care. I watched their faces the way I'd watched competitors across a negotiating table for 40 years. Jennifer's fork paused. That's concerning, Silas. You'll need to be careful. Her eyes flicked to Michael, just for a second. Michael reached for his water. Tough news, Dad. Follow the doctor's orders. Words with no warmth in them at all. Within a minute, Jennifer had pivoted the conversation back to Michael's work proposal, and my diagnosis was folded away like a dinner napkin. Later, in my converted office bedroom, I opened a drawer holding 12 identical envelopes, one for each month. I handed that month's $3,000 to Michael. He took it without a word of thanks, not even pretending anymore. That night, through the thin walls, I heard their voices rise. I stood at my door and let myself listen, some instinct telling me this mattered. Jennifer's voice cut clean through the wall. We need to talk about your father. Get that sick old man out of my house. I don't want him around my children with these diseases. He's dragging us down. Michael's protest was weak, automatic. Jenny, he's my father. I don't care. A nursing home, an apartment, anywhere. 1 week, Michael. I want him gone in 1 week. And my son, the boy I'd raised, said only, okay, I'll tell him tomorrow. I stepped back into the dark and stood there a long time. 3 years earlier, Michael had called me desperate for a down payment on that house. I'd written a check for $50,000 the next day, let them believe it had cost me everything I had left. In truth, I'd sold my commercial real estate business 5 years before for $8 million, invested it quietly, and let a balance of over $12 million grow while I played a broke old man eating their casseroles and thanking them for a bed. 3 years testing whether their love was real or financial. Now I had my answer. In the morning, Michael delivered his rehearsed line about independence and space. I told him, coldly, that I understood completely, and I began to pack. Through the wall, I heard Jennifer's voice, bright with relief. He's actually packing. While they thought I was scrambling for a cheap apartment, I was on the phone with a realtor named Diane Morrison, telling her I wanted an all-cash offer on a $500,000 to $600,000 home in West Shore. Her voice caught when I said the word cash. Then I called my banker of 23 years and told him to liquidate what I needed. Within days, I'd walked through a white stone modern house with warm wood accents and told the stunned agent I wanted to make a full-price cash offer that same afternoon. Before I left, I wrote a note and set it on the kitchen table beside my final envelope of cash. Thank you for your hospitality these 3 years. I found new housing and will be out by noon today. Don't trouble yourselves about the sick old man anymore. Jennifer's own words handed back to her. 6 days after Michael told me to leave, movers loaded my few boxes while Michael and Jennifer were at work and school drop-off. 2 hours later, I stood in my new living room, high ceilings, my own gated driveway, light pouring through glass no one else's name was on, and felt nothing but quiet satisfaction. The test was over. They had failed it completely. That evening, Michael texted, Got your note. Hope you're settled okay. Take care of yourself. 9 words. Obligation fulfilled. I didn't answer. Instead, I called Patricia Morrison, the estate attorney who'd structured my finances 5 years earlier. I need to update my will, I told her, and I need you to call my son. It's time he learned a few things about his father's finances. 3 days later, Michael sat across from Patricia as she laid out portfolio statements, the West Shore deed, bank records, $12 million, in black and white, in his father's name. He told me later, it felt like the floor had opened. He called Jennifer from the parking garage, and even from 15 floors up, Patricia could see him sitting motionless in his car before he finally moved. They called me 17 times that hour. I didn't answer. I let the messages pile up, apologies, pleading, promises to talk it through, and deleted every one. 4 days later, Jennifer's white SUV crept past my new house, circled back, and parked. They stood at my gate like tourists in front of a monument, taking in the stone and glass their father-in-law had somehow afforded. When I opened the door, Jennifer tried tears and soft words about missing me. I quoted her own sentence back to her, word for word. Sick old man, dragging us down, get him out, and watched the color drain from her face. Michael reached for the word family. I told him he'd given his father 1 week to leave that family, and I'd taken 3 days. Efficient, like always. What they didn't know was that 3 years earlier, when I'd handed over $50,000 for their down payment, I'd also quietly given them another $100,000 for renovations and made Michael sign it as a formal notarized loan. $150,000 principal, 5% interest, 5-year term with an acceleration clause. He'd signed without reading, the way people always sign things from a father they trust. Now, sitting in Patricia's office, I invoked that clause. Full balance due in 90 days, $173,000, or the house would go to foreclosure. The certified letter arrived on a Tuesday. Michael read it 3 times before the numbers made sense. Jennifer's first reaction was fury. You signed a legal contract without reading it? Before the arithmetic of their own ruin set in, combined income barely covered their mortgage. A home equity loan was impossible. My lien already sat on the property. Banks turned them away one after another. Jennifer started selling things. Designer bags at 40% off, jewelry on resale apps, furniture on Craigslist. Neighbors noticed. In 3 weeks they'd scraped together $18,000 against a debt of nearly $200,000. Their first real fight erupted in the kitchen. Jennifer blaming Michael for signing blind, Michael reminding her whose mouth had called his father a sick old man to be thrown out. They slept in separate rooms that night. Meanwhile, the story of what they'd done began circulating through Tampa's social circles, carefully, deliberately, through Patricia's network. How Jennifer Walker had thrown out her millionaire father-in-law the week he was diagnosed with heart failure. Jennifer's Instagram followers dropped by thousands within days. Comments turned vicious. A mother at school pickup asked her outright if it was true. Olivia came home crying that a friend's mother had canceled a playdate. At Michael's office, whispers reached his manager, and he was handed a formal written warning for the first time in his career. 8 weeks in, they'd assembled $68,000, still less than half what they owed. Bankruptcy stopped being a hypothetical. Jennifer tried to write me an apology letter 3 times, and deleted it 3 times, unable to find words that didn't sound hollow. It was my granddaughter who found a way through. She called me one evening from a number lifted off a business card in her father's office. "Grandpa, why don't you visit anymore? Did we do something wrong?" I told her no, that grown-ups sometimes make mistakes and need time to fix them. When I hung up, I sat with that call for a long 20 minutes, then phoned Patricia to ask if I was going too far. "Your son threw you out when you were sick," she said. "The children are collateral, yes, but their parents built this. If you stop now, you teach them cruelty has no cost." She was right. It didn't make it easier. Finally, Michael and Jennifer wrote the letter together at 2 in the morning and sent it through Patricia's office, since they no longer had my address. It admitted everything: the cruelty, the ingratitude, the shame of realizing what they'd measured a father's worth by. Jennifer's postscript was the shortest and the truest. "I understand now what we threw away. Not the money. You." I arranged a meeting at a coffee shop overlooking Old Tampa Bay. When I walked in, dressed the way a man worth $12 million actually dresses, they barely recognized me. Michael went first. No excuses. Just, I failed you. I failed as a son. I'm sorry. Jennifer followed, admitting she'd called me a burden and meant it, and that losing everything had shown her exactly what kind of person that made her. I asked them the one question I needed answered honestly. Are you apologizing because I'm a millionaire? Or because what you did was wrong? Jennifer didn't flinch from the truth. Both. I wish I could say only the second. Losing the money is what made us see what we lost in you. I laid out my terms on paper, non-negotiable, 48 hours to decide. They would keep and pay me the $90,000 they'd already scraped together, as the price of the lesson. I'd forgive the rest of the debt. They would attend 6 months of weekly family therapy. My will would stand as rewritten, the bulk of my estate to charity and a trust for Olivia and Lucas, with Michael and Jennifer receiving $100,000 combined, not each. And they would stand in front of our extended family and admit, out loud, exactly what they'd done. 2 days later, Michael called. We accept, all of it. Something in my chest loosened, quiet and unspectacular. I did this to teach you, I told him. Whether you learn is up to you. The apology happened at my cousin Rita's house, in front of 15 relatives. Michael stood first, and admitted, plainly, that he'd let his wife's cruelty dictate how he treated his own father. Jennifer repeated her own words back to the room, sick old man, dragging us down, and told everyone exactly what kind of person had said them. I told them I accepted the apology, that people aren't valuable for their bank accounts, and that our relationship going forward would have boundaries, but also the possibility of trust rebuilt through action, not words. 3 weeks later, I met my grandchildren for pancakes, supervised, public, on my terms. Lucas asked the question that undid me more than anything Michael or Jennifer had said in 3 months. Grandpa, are we allowed to love you again? I knelt to his eye level and told him he'd never stopped being allowed, and neither had I. By July, Patricia had finalized a $2 million trust for the grandchildren, untouchable until they turned 25, with Michael and Jennifer's signatures acknowledging they had no access to it. My will was filed, $8 million to charity, $2 million to the trust, $100,000 total to my son and his wife. The cost, precisely calculated, of cruelty. I started mentoring young entrepreneurs downtown, using the instincts that built my business from a single rental property 40 years ago. Saturday mornings belonged to pancakes with Olivia and Lucas. My evenings belonged to a terrace overlooking the bay, a garden I'd planted myself, and a peace no amount of family obligation had ever given me under someone else's roof. I don't regret how hard I was on them. Justice isn't cruelty, it's consequence meeting action. They wanted the sick old man gone. They got their wish, and they got the lesson that came bundled with it. My son knows now exactly what it cost to lose everything. My daughter-in-law knows the weight her own words carried. And I remember, finally and completely, who I actually am. Not the sick old man they wanted out the door. The man who built something from nothing, who survived their betrayal, and who chose justice over revenge. That man is home now. Finally and completely home.